After 1 year of global lockdown and remote work, there has been a rise in depression and psychological disease. After 2 months of lockdown, the primary school students in Portugal have come back school. In Taiwan, young disabled people are dancing with their rolling chairs during their annual meeting. EU is about to receive 200 million doses of BioNTech Pfizer anti-COVID vaccines. US Moderna Pharmaceutical Lab has started a trial of the Moderna anti-COVID vaccine on a sample of children from 6 months to 12 years old. Why do they test those vaccines on children and not adults, and takes risk on childcare and take the consents of children who do not understand the risks of taking those vaccines? This trial constitutes a deliberate and dangerous violations of the child rights. Children are not bonobos or monkeys or rats on which pharmaceutical labs can test the vaccines. Children have the rights to be protected and not to be treated as laboratory rats. This should end now. The Ministry of Health, Olivier Véran in France, hopes that the AstraZeneca vaccine would be endorsed by the European Medicine Organization. Although dozens of countries have stopped the vaccinations due to blood clots and bad side effects. An 11-year-old child in Vitry-sur-Seine near Paris in France has committed suicide today after being convicted of harassment on another child. This is a shame, and this shows the violent treatment on children and the police state that has instilled the national education in France. Huge demonstrations of more than 1,000 demonstrators in Paris are protesting against a mass surveillance in a Big Brother act that is under vote at the French Senate, because more and more French will be scrutinized by the state police, and the degrees of liberty are diminishing more and more in France. Mario Draghi and Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister of Italy and President of France, are both hoping that AstraZeneca will be authorized by the European Medical Union. This shows the close ties between pharmaceutical labs' interests and political interests. This should end now. France has become a huge open sky jail where every citizen is tracked by the police state. The internet is under the surveillance of the police internet state. All the communications, the phone communications are listened. And the new global security law that is under vote at the French Senate will diminish more and more the liberties of the French citizens. Niger has been the theater of jihadist attacks that killed 50 citizens so far. The UN Special Envoy in Yemen called for special investigation about the killing of six Ethiopian migrants that were targeted by rockets sent by the Houthis. Houthis rebels are apologizing about this drama. Ziad Taqi, the Lebanese businessman, was involved in the Libyan investment of the French presidential, has reassured that former French President Sarkozy beneficiated of this Gaddafi's gift of 50 million euros to budget the French presidential. Thomas Pesquet, the French astronauts, will join the ISS, the International Space Station, on the 22nd of April in a large swimming pool in a military base in United States, in a desert. The Prime Minister Jean Castex in France has stated that he was pretty sure that the European Medical Agency will reauthorize the AstraZeneca vaccines. He said that this vaccine is safe, although a large majority of immunologists around the world and 12 countries have stopped vaccinations due to the bad side effects of the AstraZeneca. The country of the Magna Carta, the kingdom of freedom of speech, the Commonwealth's Union of freedom of worship has given rights to the workers of Uber, and considered that the Uber workers were permanent workers and not freelancers. This is a huge victory for the employment rights, the work rights of the Uber workers. In the Great Britain, the United Kingdom is at the forefront to defend the rights of the Uber worker. Many countries around the world will follow the example of the British Empire. The French car industry is suffering from 20% of reductions of car sales over the past year, as many locked-down French citizens were reluctant to invest in a new car due to the remote work habits that were in place in France. Eminent epidemiologists in Germany and healthcare counseling companies who are giving advice to the Bundesrepublik of Germany and to Angela Merkel are worried and are warning the German administration about AstraZeneca. Indeed, they have noticed that there is a rise of the rates of cerebral vascular incidents and blood clots. Over 1.6 million patients, 7 cases were noticed with bad side effects. This is 7 times the average rate for bad side effects for vaccinations. Therefore, they suggested strongly to the German administration to stop immediately the AstraZeneca vaccinations. This map shows all the countries in orange that have stopped the AstraZeneca vaccinations due to the warning of Sweden and Denmark, who were first to notice blood clots and vascular incidents, both in the brains and the bodies of some of the patients who were vaccinated with AstraZeneca doses. This map shows that the health politic is still in the hand of the sovereign countries of Europe, even though the World Health Organization is saying that there is no big risks for using the AstraZeneca and is encouraging the countries to pursue the vaccinations with AstraZeneca. This shows that Europe still has countries with enough sovereignty to be independent of pharmaceutical lobbying. The head of the European Medicines Agency is trying to comfort the European Union nations that AstraZeneca is safe, although many eminent epidemiologists are warning about the bad side effects and the reductions of the plaquettes, of the blood plaquettes, and the rise of blood clots. Therefore, many professors in immunology are asking whether the European Medicines Agency is really independent, neutral, objective with regards to the pharmaceutical labs. Is there any conflicts of interests in the decision making of the European Medicine Agency when it comes to authorizing vaccines coming from pharmaceutical labs who may have lobbying negotiations with the European Medicines Agency? This question is crucial, and it is really a political health issue that we need to address both on a European level but also on a global level. Just because health is not negotiable and is priceless. Russia is worried about the rise of the nuclear heads in Great Britain. Is this the beginning or the rebirth of a new Cold War between Russia, China on one hand, and OTAN on the other? Is this the beginning of a doomsday, of a new World War III? Or is this just a dissuasion game, a war game, a war nerve, a war of roses between the belligerence between nations who are hungry to fight for their sovereignty and their interest zones all over the world, and who would give the world to fight for their geostrategical supremacy. A new ID card would be launched in the summer. This new card is difficult to mimic, to copy, and is increasing the level of security of the ID card. As many French citizens are suffering from identity theft, therefore, French government has decided to improve, to secure, and to bulletproof the French ID card, following many countries around the world. Many French citizens from Île-de-France, which is the Paris region, and from Hauts-de-France, which is the north region around Lille Metropole, are stopping breathing before the French President Emmanuel Macron decisions, who is actually counseled by a group of immunologists to decide whether it will reinforce the lockdown at the weekend or not. It is a pity that this decision that will have devastating effects on the liberty of millions of French citizens taken solely by one man, counseled by 12 doctors. Many voices call for this decision to be voted at the French Parliament or the French Senate, because France is a democracy and not a dictatorship. Blois, the famous Château de la Loire city in France, was the theater of violent riots that burned a supermarket and many cars after an incident between the police, who wanted to arrest and control a driver. The occupied territories of Palestine have received today from the World Health Organization, the UNICEF, and the COVAX program some doses of vaccines to vaccinate the Palestinian population, who was the only population in the world who did not have any vaccines so far. This is a justice for the Palestinians. Even observers said that this COVAX program is a poisoned gift that may endanger the health of the Palestinians, as many vaccines are not enough tested, clinically tested, and are abruptly rushed on the market without enough quality assurance, are endangering the blood health, the blood stability of the patients. Many voices around the world are calling for United Nations sanctions against China, the communist dictatorship empire, who is enjailing a whole population of Uyghur in the Xinjiang region, rich and diverse. And the Chinese should protect the diversity of ethnies, of cultures on the whole Chinese empire, as the Chinese dragon shouldn't cut his own queue and shouldn't burn the bridge with the Xinjiang Muslim Chinese because they are Muslims. This is a shame. This Muslim apartheid in China should cease now. POTUS Joe Biden said that it would be difficult for the US forces, military forces, to withdraw by 1st of May from Afghanistan. The answers of the Taliban was immediate and was a wake-up call, a threat warning against the US military base to withdraw by this deadline, otherwise they would start a global war against the US military troops. So Joe Biden has no choice to urge the withdrawal of his soldiers from this country, which has been burnt, destroyed, and demolished by this outrageous civil war. China was the surprise invitee at the demonstration between the military junta in Burma and the freedom fighters, as a Chinese factory in Burma has been burnt. Is this a revenge of the assault, the harassment of the Muslim Uyghurs by the China Empire? 30 years after the chemical attacks of Saddam Hussein against the Kurdistan population in Iraq, Kurdistan survivors are calling for justice. United Nations observers who visit the Xinjiang regions are asking China to visit the Uyghur protesters and political prisoners and activists. China refuses so far, as it may endanger its image around the world. Xinjiang is under satellite surveillance by the OTAN and the Security Council nations. This map unveils the large-scale structure of the prisons in the Xinjiang, where millions of Uyghurs are imprisoned. Xinjiang has become an open-sky jail where every river, mountain, street, house is used to enjail the Uyghurs, despite the appeal of the global community to free the Uyghurs, to let them pray Allah, to let them practice Islam, as freedom of worship should prevail. The US Special Envoy, who visited Japan and South Korea, is counting his allies to counter terror, the inner and outer attacks of China and North Korea in Southeast and Northeast Asia. Oil and gas traders are forecasting the rise of the demand of oil by 2026, that will reach a historical high, if the green economy is not taken over. A Russian scuba diver has dived 20 meters under the ice surface of the Baikal Lake in Russia and won the world record of scuba diving under ice. The Tunisian president has started a visit in Libya, which has been devastated by civil war and where the actual government is trying to restore peace and rebuild a country destroyed by the coalition of Sarkozy, Bernard-Henri Lévy, and the US. In Sri Lanka, a new de-radicalization law is suspected to target the dissidents, the opponent and activists against the Sri Lankan regime, and many voices around the world call for freedom for the dissidents and freedom of speech. A candle march in Birmania has united many demonstrators, more than 1,000, holding a candle, each one of them, to mourn the killed, were peacefully demonstrating without any weapon and were shot by this outrageous military junta. As many countries around the world are reluctant to pursue the AstraZeneca vaccinations, the World Health Organization is pushing for the use of Johnson & Johnson vaccine as an alternative to vaccinate globally the population against the coronavirus. The Clubhouse social network, who is more and more used by millions of internet users, is under the French data privacy scrutiny, as more and more people are worried about the data privacy. Indeed, they can join a virtual room where they can discuss from 1 to 1,000 people. However, is the GDPR respected on Clubhouse, or Clubhouse is closing the door for GDPR. Many new adopters of Clubhouse have joined the social network because they thought it was private and secure. However, many security flaws and data privacy issues are raising attention of national security organizations like the French CNIL and ethical hackers around the world. 6 Chinese masseuses and 2 customers of a spa aromatherapy massage has been shot in an outrageous attack by a mad Seoul American who claimed that his terrorist attack was not motivated by racism against Chinese people. Biden, the POTUS, took this opportunity to warn against racism rise against the Chinese population in the US and called for peace and the respect of the diversity of the United States of America. The US Fed has increased its forecasts of US growth for the US economy to 6.5% for 2021, as Joe Biden's administration has injected an historical budget of $1.9 trillion to boost the US economy restart, reboot, and the comeback to work of more than 10 million unemployed Americans. This is the rebirth of the US economy. Joe Biden called Vladimir Putin a killer. This insult is the symbol of the rebirth, the renaissance of the Cold War between the two superpowers who are competitor for the second place of the largest economy, as China has become the first global economy so far. Who would win the duel? Wait and see. Benjamin Netanyahu lost his strongest ally, ex-President Trump, as he is trying to conquer Israel as the new prime minister for the new elections. Many voices are asking Bibi to retire. Therefore, Netanyahu is struggling to win the elections, as the new Biden's administration is definitely pro-Palestinians. Is this a new era for the peace process? This was the global news for the 17th of March 2021. Hilal AKRAMINE, Fawz News, Paris. Fawz News International is a global news agency, independent, that provides you free, strategical, political, economical, refreshing news around the clock and around the world.